Hi, thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Lisa Toppin, and you're listening to Inputs to Action. Today, my guest is Hazel Allison Way, who is a nearing graduating senior from high school in the New Jersey area. Welcome, Hazel.
Hi.
So today we're talking about sort of what many graduates across the country are facing, and that is a change in how they're experiencing their senior year and what they're doing with that. So I'm anxious to jump into this with you, Hazel. Now you're still finishing up school. You guys are still wrapping up, heading to the end of the year. When did it become clear to you that all of the traditional activities that go with the senior year were going to be lost, and what were your thoughts about that?
So my school district was one of the later ones to close in New Jersey. So we knew it was coming, but ours just hadn't closed yet. But then on the Thursday night before the Monday, where schools were pretty much closing across the state, my district called it. And so it turned into my last school night ever. I spent it at an orchestra rehearsal, and only about a third of the kids were there, which struck me as a little strange and the beginning of end times in terms of Corona. And that was pretty much when I decided that I wasn't going to be having a prom or a graduation. I don't think that's when the rest of the world did, but I just felt like, how could we?
Right.
I knew we were going to be closed they only closed it for 2 weeks initially, and they did it in 2-week segments for a little bit after that. But I just, schools were, all of the schools in Virginia closed before my school did. And they weren't having prom, and
right.
Just figured we were so close to New York. How could we?
Right.
And I was sad, but I am really lucky. My school only has senior prom, and I got to go last year. So it wasn't quite as much of a loss for me. And I recognize that. And I was sad about graduation too, but at the same time, there are bigger things happening. It wasn't the biggest sad for me. The biggest sad for me was I have 2 of my close friends are going to be moving out of town when they go to college. And so not being able to spend time with them has been harder than not having prom or graduation.
Okay, that's an interesting point. And I appreciate what that shock must have been, because you're an accomplished violinist. And so showing up to orchestra and only the third of the students there, that must have been a little bit of a loss for sure, just to being able to finish that out. You all probably had a final concert and, sort of those kinds of things. Not that you'll stop playing, but I get that you lose that immediate group that you've probably been playing with for a long time. It sounds like you pivoted quickly though, because you read the tea leaves around you. Virginia closed, and things were happening. So you kind of got to very quickly that this was going to, that you probably weren't going back, even though they were doing it in 2-week increments.
Yeah, it was important to me to prepare myself. I hate being caught unaware. It's hard for me to change plans sometimes. And so I was like, might as well just, maybe I'll get a happy surprise, but why wouldn't I start preparing?
Right. No, so smart. Okay. So now you mentioned that you're in New Jersey, and I'm thinking that we know that this has been an area that's been particularly hard hit by COVID-19. What has been the conversation with students? How are students feeling about that? Are they feeling it much more significantly than perhaps we are in other areas, do you think?
I think that students in my district reacted faster to the world than a lot of other places did. I have a lot of friends whose parents are health workers. We've had losses in the community, and I think everyone was really aware that was going to happen. I remember a couple of people I know, a couple days after school ended, started a COVID mask group to make them. And I wasn't surprised. We're a pretty socially conscious group. But there's a large sect of people who were just oh my God, senior year, my sports season, my orchestra season, which is totally understandable. So I think we're a little more conscious than maybe other seniors across the country, but not to a great degree, but certainly to some extent. And we have been teachers in the district have led big mask making campaigns and stuff, and people are helping.
Yeah, which I think that's a good call out and significant to appreciate that you're probably experiencing it in a much more tangible way than other communities, just because of the numbers that you've seen in terms of the community. So how are you sounds like the community is sort of pivoting in terms of making change. Did you do some things for yourself to sort of start to pivot and think about what you were going to do, or how you're going to find the silver lining in all of this?
Well, I, kept at it with my schoolwork at first and was just, trying to chug along and keep as much of a schedule as I could. But then when the district announced their plans as a substitute for an in-person graduation, it's going to be a virtual ceremony on the same day that we would have graduated, it occurred to me that there was a ton of money somewhere probably that they weren't spending on a real graduation. And so I started looking into where district graduation money comes from and goes, and our student council is in charge of prom. So I was like, maybe they have some money too. And then I looked into our parent teacher association, who plans Midnight Madness, which is our substance-free graduation ceremony party thing. And so I reached out to some people, and it seemed like there were funds that could be tapped into that could potentially be put back into the town to help, members of the senior class even who have lost parents to COVID and stuff. And so I created a petition on change.org to lobbying the district, the Parent Teacher Association, and Student Council to donate any funds that they could to a specific group in our town that was helping COVID families, or specifically to a COVID donation drive for one specific family on Facebook. And that felt good. And I think it could be a really nice way for the senior class to, I think it's a sort of a celebration of us.
Wow, that's so good. I don't know who gets credit for this, Azel. Is this the rearing from your parents, or is this the school that you are so conscious and aware and thoughtful to even ask the question, where does the money come from? That's really good. That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what has the response been to that? How has that been received? You got a petition going? Did you get signatures? What's happened?
So we got a much higher number. I was looking for, a quarter to a third of the class, because I figured I wasn't going to get a majority, but I couldn't just, demand. I would have, without a backing, there was no point to my demand. So I specified that it was only for members of the class of 2020 and their families, because their money also goes into taxpaying graduation. And I circulated it just using my Instagram. But then parents had it on their Facebook group chats and stuff that I'm not in, but I heard about it, and it really got around, and it got I don't think people are signing it anymore, but it has about 230 signatures, and that's more than a third. Some of them are parents, so I think it's probably about a third of the class is represented in it, but that's a big show of support. And all of the different groups I reached out to were very open to it, more open than I thought they would be. The superintendent was great. Actually, he got back to me super quickly. He had the district financial advisor look into it, and it doesn't seem like they can donate funds for a lot of legal reasons, but we can try to work out something as a class gift, they said. So they worked with me, and the Parent Teacher Association has been working with me, and the president of Student Council she's allowed me actually to sit in on meetings where they're planning sort of a virtual or backup prom maybe, so that I can help them out with where they might donate and stuff if they decide to go that route.
That's fantastic. I hope it sounds like it's still sort of figuring out exactly where it will land. And I understand as soon as you say sort of government pieces, I don't even have to know the details to know that they probably just can't pivot and make a donation in that way. I'm sure there are rules and regulations that don't allow for that. But I love that the superintendent got back to you so quickly and was trying to work with you to figure it out, because that, just, I'm going to say, underscores the power of that great idea, that there was so much support from the very beginning. And it sounds like it's still sort of cooking. So as you sort of think about next steps, so it sounds like people are still considering it. Your year hasn't quite ended, so there's still, I guess, time and the decision to be made about that. what was it about this idea that was so important to you? Because I'm kind of impressed by the idea of taking this money, redirecting it in terms of what our experience is. You sort of talked about that, but I'd love you to say a little bit more about, how it defines, why it makes you feel good, and how it defines you as a class.
Well, it just, like, when they came out with, like, we're going to have a virtual graduation, and also we're making a banner that has all of your faces on it to hang on this sign in front of school, or on this fence in front of school. And I was like, that's doing, like, nothing for me. Like, I appreciate it, but it doesn't make me feel celebrated or honored. And so I was trying to think of something that would. It was, honestly, it came from sort of a self-serving place at first. I was like, what can we do that, because I feel like what's happening to us marks us as a special class. And like my mom has said to me throughout this, when I've been lamenting, like, whenever you meet someone else from the class of 2020, like, you'll have this bond. And I think that our graduation should reflect that. I think whatever we're doing to ceremony and celebrate us should be, cognizant of the situation that we're in right now. And so this is what I came up with. I thought it was like a nice, like, I had to, like, sort of ask permission. So it was like the people I was asking were giving us sort of a gift and allowing us to do this. And we were also like I live in a very, like, woke town. Like, everybody loves its diversity. And so I figured this was a tangible way to bring that out, and B, if that truly is how everyone feels, it would be a nice reflection of our class and the spirit that we have.
I think that's fantastic. I think just sort of thinking it through to say, look, the way that we get honored is really by helping and doing something significant, opposed to our faces on a banner, because that won't stay up. I mean, next year they're going to take that down.
Actually, it's like about to come down, because awesomely, a couple of art history students are putting up a Black Lives Matter art installation where it's going to be, I think. Like, it's not even
right.
Times are moving. Like,
times are moving. Yeah, you bring up a whole nother issue that we are managing through. What has the reaction of your class been around sort of the death, the murder of George Floyd, and because you live in a woke town. So what are you experiencing there?
I do live in a place where everyone has something to say about it, which is good. And I consider myself a youth organizer, and there are a lot of people like that in my grade and in the grade below me. And so all of the, usual suspects have been meeting, like me and like our leaders of our Students for Justice Club, but we've also had like a lot of teachers helping us and a lot of great adult resources in the community. So we have these big Zoom calls, and we've planned some actions. There have been actions that I haven't been a part of planning that have been really great. We had a beautiful vigil for Breonna Taylor on her birthday that a lot of people turned out for in the rain. So it's definitely, people are involved. I mean, we also like had a lot of climate strikes. Like, it's just the culture here. Yeah. But my town and district, like, we have a lot of racial issues. You can look at a classroom in my high school and you can tell what level it is based on the racial makeup of the students in it. We have a lot of segregation that happens in like elementary school. I wasn't in the district for elementary school, so I don't quite know how it works, but it happens and it's unfair and wrong. And so what started in my town as just our typical action has turned into like talking about the district and talking about the police, because even though we have like this woke town, that's not reflected in the racial makeup of our school, and it's not reflected in our police department either. Like, we've had a lot of incidents with young people. In 2015, I think it was, at the fireworks, like for 4th of July every year, a large group of Black and brown students were corralled by the police, like away from the festivities toward Irvington, which is a largely Black and brown town near us. And it's just bad.
Yeah.
And so it's, at first it was a lot of like sort of trivial conscious raising, but now I really think it's gaining traction and going somewhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is so great. And I got to tell you, for my experience as a mature African-American woman, to hear you and to hear what your colleagues are doing and pushing for and talking about, I know it's going to change. And I'm so encouraged by all of this. I think your idea to to donate the money was brilliant. And I just know it's the beginning of really great things because you're awesome. so I'm a fan, Hazel, is what I want you to know.
Thank you.
Now I know we're before we close out, I know you are you're heading off to university in the fall. Where have you finally decided to go?
I will be attending Wesleyan University. I'm very excited.
Yeah, you ought to be. What a great school. That is so awesome. That's really tremendous. Do you have any final advice for the rest of us? Because you're so active, it sounds like in so many ways in the community that you're in. And I know you're going to bring that energy to Wesleyan. So they're super lucky to have you. I'm going to tag them on this. They need to know who's going to shake things up. But how, what advice do you have? We always ask this question. What advice do you have for the rest of us?
Well, I think I learned a lot from the making of the petition. I read through the school district budget and like some transcripts of board meetings and stuff, which are all available to the public legally. They have to be, but nobody looks through them. And it was really eye-opening. Like I saw how much funding goes into music and how much funding goes into sports. And it was just really interesting. And I encourage everyone to do that for their school district. I mean, it's your taxpayer money, and it affects you. And so that was really interesting. And I also learned a lot about communicating with authority figures whom I might have sort of a bone to pick with, but need to get them on my side.
Right.
And in organizing like this week and last week in relation to police brutality and stuff like that, I'm learning a ton about organizing right now because so many wonderful adults have been gracious enough to advise us. I'm learning a lot about like stepping to the side and letting other voices speak, but like doing the work that needs to be done. And that's really important. And I think I'm doing a good job with that. And I think everyone else I'm working with is too. But definitely, like look into your school budget and stuff. Yeah. It's very telling. Also your town budget for police and everything else.
That is such great advice. And I don't think we have enough conversation about and I think President Obama came on and sort of talked a little bit about thinking about our impact or influence at the local levels. And you're in it. You're doing it. So thank you. Great advice. We're going to leave it there today. I appreciate so much you joining. Hazel Allison Way, thank you. And I thank the audience for listening. This is Dr. Lisa Toppin, Inputs to Action.